So can you please give us a quick introduction about yourself and what you are currently doing?
Happy to. So my name is Lisa Keslar. I am a bit of a serial entrepreneur. I have been in all sorts of different startups or small organizations that have been in a variety of industries, mostly manufacturing or distribution companies, but things that had to do with fashion accessory, medical products, communications products, and most recently now I'm in a service company and we provide insurance solutions for consumers in New Hampshire, Maine, and Massachusetts.
What would you say is your favorite part of your job currently?
Favorite part of my job is helping people. I think as long as you go into a job and find ways that you can create value for others, whether it's saving them money, whether it's educating them, whether it's giving them the products and services they really need, I think that's where the tipping point for me. I'm finding joy.
Being a serial entrepreneur, as you put it, so you've had a lot of different jobs in which you've either owned your own business or worked in like startups or small businesses. So did you always know you wanted to own your own business one day, or is that something that came later on? And if so, when did you come to this realization?
I certainly thought it was a possibility. I majored in entrepreneurship in my master's program, and I went to a school that was really strong in entrepreneurship for both my graduate and my undergraduate. So I think I always sort of, even from my educational standpoint, entrepreneurship was sort of just a part of my existence. My parents were entrepreneurs, so it didn't seem that foreign to me. So, and I always really liked working in smaller organizations where I felt like I could make a significant impact, and so I always ended up in entrepreneurial companies.
You mentioned your parents being entrepreneurs. Is that something that do you think they were sort of a source of inspiration for you, or is there like a certain individual in your life that kind of came forward as well?
Definitely my parents were a source of inspiration. They, dinner table conversations were always about, this is what happened at work today. What do you think? What would you have done? What else are other options? So we talked business all the time. I mean, that was sort of our regular dinner time chats. So yeah, they were definitely an influence. Business was just always part of my everyday conversation.
This is something that you prioritize every day.
I don't know that there's anything I prioritize every single day, but I definitely try to prioritize, some balance of getting exercise and walking my dogs, at least 5 days a week. I try to prioritize my customers or the people that are waiting for answers for me, so I can be known as responsive. Being, owning an agency, it's really important that people that we illustrate to people the kind of care and attention to detail that we offer all of our clients. So we regularly make sure that one of those things is that we're always in communications and we're always responsive. So those are the things that get prioritized, those things that represent what's important to the culture of our business, and that's being responsive.
And what do you think has made you most successful as an entrepreneur today?
Network, community, knowing people, building relationships. The combination between your network and your connections and having integrity, having a good personal brand and a reputation. And I think having those two things, that go hand in hand. But I think those two things are really important in finding success.
What is one thing in your life that you're really passionate about that's unrelated to your work?
Caring. Really passionate about giving back and finding ways to celebrate the good that's going on in our community. So it's one of the things I'm lucky enough and that finally in this role and that I'm more community focused. Other roles I was sort of, in companies that were selling nationally or globally, not a lot of focus around the community and supporting our friends and neighbors kind of thing. But when you own a local insurance agency, it's completely aligned with our culture to find time to support local nonprofits and local volunteering opportunities. So that's something that I really am passionate about.
So I guess segueing into the family business aspect of your life. So coming from me personally, my both my parents had owned businesses, and specifically my dad and his side of the family, him and his three brothers, my uncles owned their own business, and I totally relate to those dinner side conversations. Or it seems like every time we come home, me and my younger siblings are listening to my parents talk about what's going well, what's not going well, what they can do better. So, what would you say is some of the best and some of the not so best aspects of working with family?
Oh, some of the best things, the best thing about being a part of a family business is that you've got a group of people that you know, you love, you trust, and they've got your back, right? Like, so when you need help, you need someone to pitch in. There's no one who cares about you and is going to be there for you in the way that your family is going to be. There's that loyalty, there's that connection. At the same time, that doesn't mean that it always goes smoothly. So if you're working with people that have very different visions or different thoughts or different ideas, it can get very stressful, right? There's a whole emotional component that and emotional baggage that's part of that relationship, that wouldn't normally be in a standard business relationship. So there's pros and cons.
Speaking on that, as we are approaching the holiday season, I wanted to ask you, what is the best way, or what things do you do to kind of leave work behind the table?
I think, you have to be candid and you have to be open and honest about, hey, let's, if things come up of, that's a great point. We should talk about that. Let's do that on Monday when we're back at the office, right? Like, sort of that redirecting, that kind of thing. Like, hey, let's just focus on family today. Let's stay in a conversation that everyone here can enjoy and participate in. So I think, it's, and hopefully everyone's on the same page with that, right? That they all understand and know that maybe there's a time and place for everything.
I know you do have some children, and I was wondering, do you hope that they one day join your family business, or are you hoping that they develop their own path and go into having their own business of their own or working somewhere else?
Um, it doesn't matter. I want them to find joy and find purpose and find happiness. At this point, none of them express any interest. I mean, but I think if I was between the ages of 16 and 21, I wouldn't have ever been like, woohoo, insurance, right? Like, so I mean, I can understand that's the stage they're at, and they don't see the part yet, that I've learned about really that community connection, that really building relationships with those people that you're working with, and um, being really an integral part of their lives, their decision making, and when they buy houses and they buy cars, and their kids get their driver's license, and we're part of a lot of that, and that's really nice and fun and interesting. So I think that could come over time, but there's no pressure or obligation for my children. They need to find their own journey.
In addition to being an owner of Keslar Insurance, you are also a part-time professor at the University of New Hampshire in Peter T. Paul. So I was wondering, when did you know you want to become a teacher, or was it something that sort of just came about? And what's your favorite part of teaching students?
Oh God. Okay. So I had no intention of teaching initially. I just wanted to volunteer and get involved with students. So I kept asking to volunteer and help and pitch in and help and pitch in. I did teach at Southern New Hampshire University prior to UNH, and their online program, and I kind of liked just being a mentor or providing some support and some facilitation, with those students too. When the opportunity came up to take a class or teach a class at UNH, yeah, I thought it would be really cool and fun, and it has been fantastic. The UNH students are smart, they're interested, they are interesting, they are motivated, they are willing to roll up their sleeves and get into and do work that's project-based work that's really teaching them through actually doing. So I just find them to be a pleasure, and I'll keep doing it as long as it's fun, and as long as I feel like I am. To me, they're my clients. Students are my clients, and my job is to make my clients have a valuable experience. And as long as I'm creating value for them, and they're happy with that, and it's still fun to do so, I'll keep doing it.
In teaching entrepreneurship, what do you think some of the aspects of entrepreneurship or being an entrepreneur that can't really be learned in the classroom?
So much. of entrepreneurship really comes from doing, right? So we can do some rough things like, we can build pro formas in a classroom, and then people kind of go, wow, it's really hard to guess what my revenues are going to be, or they can try to guess what their expenses are going to be, right? And
Yeah.
because they don't know, they have no history, they have no track record. So some of that can be taught, but a lot of the stuff about pivoting and being resilient and um, trying to find ways to get things done with no resources and no money or no cash, or all of that's, and to handle the highs and lows, and to see challenges as opportunities, all those kinds of life skills come through doing. So I think we can give people a really good foundation of education around entrepreneurship. We can teach all the hands-on, like, how do you build a business plan? What's the kind of research you need to do? What are the things you need to do first? And give them a really great roadmap. And we can also talk about really important issues that are directly relevant to entrepreneurship in terms of team building culture, sort of in some of those soft skills, building networks. We can talk a lot about that, but it's so different when you actually do it. So until we can find ways to really get that full hands-on experience to each student in the classroom, there'll still be learning opportunities after they graduate. That's for sure.
What is one characteristic or trait that you see in successful entrepreneurs, or is important for anyone to have who's looking to start their own business?
There's so many important traits. I could not just pick one. I just mentioned resiliency. I just mentioned the ability to pivot, or to continue, or to know when to cut your losses and when not, right? I think there's so much with that comes, and everyone's got a different threshold for a lot of that. It's, how risk adverse you are or aren't for certain kinds of things. I think all of that comes together. And then a whole bunch more too, right? Like, are you thinking about creating value? What are your long-term goals? Can you stay aligned with your goals, and really, stay true to that, and continue to drive forward? So I think there's a whole bunch of things that are really important for entrepreneurs to find success.
Oh, there's a common, I guess, I don't know if in the specific entrepreneur worlds, but I guess the layperson world of entrepreneurship, like trope of whether you should always go into a business with an exit plan, or if you go into the business with an exit plan, that means you're not going to fully commit to the business. I'm wondering what your take on that sort of debate is and what you think.
I think the answer is like everything else in life, right? That's the answer you give in economics. It depends, right? So it depends. Are you building a lifestyle business? Are you building a high growth, high tech startup that you plan to be involved with and then flip or sell, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think the answer is it depends. And I do think that there's times it totally makes sense to have an exit strategy, to have a plan. And I think, in some cases, some people would argue that you always want something like that. What happens when you go to retire? What happens if someone offers you enough money to buy it, right? And even if you weren't thinking about it, would you entertain it? So it's something I think entrepreneurs think about, and they think about regularly. And but I think, it's a really personal thing.
Our final question today, and how we're going to wrap up this interview, or the name of the class with Professor Soul, is the meaning of entrepreneurship. So I am wondering, Lisa Keslar, to you, what is the meaning of entrepreneurship?
And for me, I think the meaning is really broad. But for me, if you're thinking of an entrepreneur as someone who's starting, or for me, it's someone who's solving a problem with some sort of product or service, and they're focused on a particular target market or group of customers to address that need, right? And that can be someone, and I find that there's a lot of people who are very entrepreneurial, so they're entrepreneurial inside a corporation, and they're doing some really cool things. I've seen people who start from scratch. I think there's a lot of things that can fall under that entrepreneurial mindset and that entrepreneurial definition. And I think that's what makes it so fun.
That's great. All right. Well, thank you for your time today, and thank you for answering my questions.
My pleasure.
Yeah.